I will briefly introduce them. We have, shall we change the order of presentation because the seating, no? So we continue with this. All right, our first speaker will be Pak Faisal Jalal. He is from the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management, and he has a very deep interest in doing research on business continuity plan, and of course he has a long experience in disaster management. And our second speaker will be Dr. Rianti Jalante. She's a scholar doing a lot of work, well published internationally on the area of development studies, disaster management, disaster risk, and then related areas. She's associated as the program, I think, officer at the UN University in Tokyo, Japan. And the third speaker, all of you already, I think, know her, Ibu Adelina Kamal. She is currently the executive director of the AHA Center. And reading her bios, I think it's safe for me to say that AHA Center is her baby as well, because she's involved since the very beginning of the creation of the AHA Center. So I think we will be very lucky to hear from her about the AHA Center, and because AHA Center is at the forefront of, I think, ASEAN response to disasters in the region. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Muammar Febri. He's the program manager for climate change for European Union delegation to Indonesia and Brunei, based in Jakarta. So we have all Indonesian speakers. So I hope this can be also a contribution of Indonesia. According to the data that we have, we were struck the most, in the region by multiple disasters. And now we have all these Indonesian speakers with their experience to share their thought. Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite Pak Faisal Jalal for a presentation, about 10 minutes, max 15 minutes. Please, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, good afternoon. I think, after lunch, I hope you still a little bit concentrate on my speech. So, first of all, I would like to thank the ASEAN Secretariat, the People's Republic of China, and the CSIS for giving me this opportunity to speak a little bit about this topic with the issue of disaster management to all you distinguished guests. So when I see all the what I have to address here, especially the key question, so I thought, wow, it's quite heavy compared to, just like, say, if you can compare it as a cat family between Asia Pacific Alliance and ASEAN, it's just like a wild tiger, big one, powerful, and the house cat. But the question is, who is happier? Who is comfortable in the living? I think house cat is a little bit more happier to live within the human instead of in the wild forest and so on. So let me start with my presentations. There are blocks in this presentation. So first block of maybe three slides, how we make a solid alliance among different countries with different background of cultures and so on and so on. So there should be a parameter, there should be a framework, there should be a mission and objective and so on and so on. So let's start with the number one. So if you see here, we have a simple mission will be understood by others. It's just saving more life. That was our intention and our aim of this, why we set up this Asia-Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management. It consists of 6 countries: APAD Japan, APAD Korea, APAD Philippines, APAD Sri Lanka, APAD Bangladesh, and of course APAD Indonesia. So thing is, how we do that, it's through the innovative strategic partnership among government, so private sector, civil society for effective humanitarian response and sustainable development. If you see the picture, so it's really, we should be hooked in each country to deal and to the networking with the private sector, community, civil society, and of course government. So there's unique features that it can read also. So this is also important. And then next step, and important also, that we have to change what is the value, the 7 value, the core value within this framework of the organization. But who we are is, it's a transnational disaster aid alliance for the purpose of facilitating collaboration among Asia Pacific in aims of implementing effective, efficient activities for disaster assistance, relief, reconstruction, as well as disaster preparedness and risk reduction. Next. So this is 3, our ultimate achievement. So peaceful, safe Asia Pacific, revolutionized philanthropy, and empowered and robust civil society, and so on. So next, just quickly. So where do we learn that? So I think it came from Japan. Japan is very, very advanced already in terms of disaster management. So they have here, what important is that all this relief which is coming from the business community and government, they have a trust to the civil society. In that case, this is the example of Japan platform, and then can provide fund for the NGO who specialize in that relief and so on, so that they do their work. So that was the main issue, how we come to this idea. So we would like to have this from domestics, from Japan to the regional Asia within the country's member. Next. And then important also the cooperation mechanisms. This is also we learned from Japan during the Sendai earthquake tsunami. So there should be a kind of special role and function of government, NGO, NPO corporation, medical profession, media, and so on. But they have to be in one filling each other role and function, which is command and coordinated by civic force. So civic force is not a government agency, it's a civil society agency. So this is also the trust of the Japan government to the civil society is quite strong, and that is really neat in our occasion, in our example. So next. So this is what we have been done in terms of all the, I mean, you can read it after all because it's a little bit, but then I have to like to give you our experience within this alliance and this cooperation and partnership. So next. So in Nepal earthquake, so we work together, APAD Japan, APAD Sri Lanka, and APAD Bangladesh within their own specialties. For example, APAD Bangladesh is specialist for the healthcare. They set up many mobile hospitals. APAD Sri Lanka is more for the search and rescue team, and also APAD Japan in that occasion. So another example, cooperation. So next, yeah, between Japan and Korea for the Kumamoto earthquake. So next, and this is also for the rescue team of APAD Sri Lanka in the Turkey, working together with the to local agency and also from Taiwan and so on and so on. So cooperation among other countries, among region, and also is important in that occasion. So next. This is also an example of a search and rescue team. If you see the APAT Sri Lanka, they are in partnership with Navy and with the Air Force. And the other is the civil society for search and rescue. Just another example, also in the national, you have also to cooperate with all possible institutions for this very important search and rescue. This is also one of the strengths of the APAT Philippines with networking and platform at the local level. So if you see that they call it APAT Bicol, so it's in Bicol district, and they're working with a polytechnic for just a simple flood early warning device project. Yeah. And we have another, this is what I call local wisdom. When we visit the Cox's Bazar, the Apat Bangladesh set up an emergency hospital, but what important is they assign only doctors, workers, medicine workers who speak the Rohingya, and that is very important. So the trust and confidence. So the Rohingya language. And this is what we have with Indonesia, APAT Korea, APAT Indonesia. We set up an integrated community shelters with the local agency ACT, and of course working together with the kecamatan or sub-district PEMDA or government. This is all example, and we are not only in terms of emergency and other, but also we try also to set up and strengthen our capacity building and also experience with others. For example, by doing an international workshop in Dhaka and so on, which also working together with WHO and so on and so on. So that it's all the example how we cooperate and how important it is to work together at the highest level of region, also at national level, and also at the local level. Next, I think. So what the experience show is that building networking at all levels are crucial. Engagement and strong involvement of private sector, civil societies, and government institutions for collaboration is a must. Trust and transparency to each other should not be overlooked. And then, I said it, different fish for different lakes, or different lake has different fishes. So sometimes you neglect about how important this communication approach and so on. So make use of local wisdom and local knowledge whenever possible. Communicate, speak, or the language that best understood by your partner. I have the feeling sometimes that the government have their own language, private sector have their own language, and civil society. So how you combine that we can understand each other in this very important disaster related issue for the preparedness and so on and so on. So learn the socio-cultural background for your partners. So we have also the feeling, for example, the different background, social cultures and attitude of Japan, which is very disciplined compared to Indonesia. We are more relaxed and so, and that sometimes hindered a little bit communication, but we understand each other now better. So learn the socio-cultural background for your partner. So whenever you are, wherever you stay, and learn, of course, the outside environment you have to deal with, etc., etc. So I think we have the last one, please. So what we learned and gained until now, mutual understanding is important. Borderless friendship and brotherhood will be increased on that. know better social culture of the region as well as countries members better. This is what we have experienced and we have learned. Increase understanding the sympathy through all this action, better sharing experience and information and knowledge, and which will gain, of course, capacity and capability. We have increased the borderless mutual help, strengthened the motivation to help for those who are in need. So we are more passionate on that issue after this experience. We save more cross-border people lives, and promoting a better peace world in the Asia-Pacific region. We care more for others. A very good example is the competition between industry and economy between Korea and Japan. But within this APAT, they really work together most the best. So I think that's all, right? So thank you very much. I hope this small example can be just make a hint and answer some of the important questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Faisal Jalal, and thank you for highlighting and drawing lessons from the rich experience of the APAD. And then the lessons, among other things, is that you've given an example of how multinational networks of non-governmental organizations can actually make a difference. Now, I'd like to invite the second speaker, Dr. Rianti Jalante. The 10 minutes is yours.
So first of all, I would like to say thank you for ASEAN to invite and also give a role for UNU, and I think for the good collaboration that we have had so far. So my talk will focus on the science-based partnerships and network and how it has helped disaster risk reduction in the past, but I think it's not enough. So a little bit an introduction about UNU system. May I have a show of hand who have heard about UNU before? So it's only a few probably, yeah? Those who, yes, not half of the room. So UNU is part of the UN system. We are a think tank, 15 institutes worldwide. We do research and policy engagement from issue of peace, migration, health, disaster risk reduction, with offices all over the world. The two institutions that work on disasters are based in Bonn, in Germany, and also in Tokyo, where I'm currently based at. So I think I picked this as I think the situation that would describe the role of science and the importance of science and making science available when it's needed. So this is from a quote from International Science Council, and they say that rapidly evolving situation, this is about coronavirus, calls for international scientific collaboration. We cannot deal with corona as an international issue that is happening now alone or without an integration. So I know you are busy, so I will put my key message first. So I have 3 key messages here about the role of education and scientific networks for DRR. There is an increased needs for science to support the society. So Gilbert, he is a sociologist 40 years ago, even said, we know more, but we are losing even more. Science have expanded, research on disasters, a lot expanded, but we keep losing people. The increasing number of people who died from and also economic loss increases. So we need to ask deeper, how should science and scientific networks help to reduce this number of losses, which is also what is called by the Sendai Framework for Action. Then also I will show you the big gap between DRR science and disaster impact. So this is a study that is done globally, examining materials that have been produced on disaster, and a very big gap occurs between countries who produce the science and countries who are impacted by disaster a lot. Then also my third key messages, it's about innovative approaches to strengthen scientific. The way we do science, we do engagement is occurring worldwide, and I think this is the lesson which I think probably relevant to the way ASEAN and its networks deal with science to support disaster risk reduction. Next, please. So this is, I think, a very good summary on how science has been able to help us in disaster risk reduction. First of all, science is the key. We are in a goal-based development mode and strategies now. With Sustainable Development Goals, they have 17 goals, 169 strategies, indicators. It's only through science that we can measure this goal. The second issue is that disaster risk reduction, and we know more than 80% of disasters and also the impacts, also occurrences and disaster loss is related to climate change. And integrating risk reduction and climate change adaptation is important, and science, or through scientific research and policy, supporting policy approaches that we can help to achieve these co-benefits and integrating them simultaneously. Also, when there is a problem within development, usually it's science that can help to shed a light on that. So this issue of data, gender and sex disaggregated data, it's only through science, and the way we do science, we can see how this we can move from being resilient to even doing a larger transformation in risk reduction. Also, science helps with uncertainty, climate change, urbanization, population, and also this impacts of, for example, in health that we haven't seen before. Science can help us to deal with the uncertainty through like methods that have been developed now. Then investment in transparent risk governance is important. We know that buildings save life, like strong buildings save lives, and it's only through science that is able to say that. We know that, for example, investment, $1 we invest can lead to $7 benefit. This is also through science. And lastly, and I think also this is important and very relevant to our talk today, is that science and scientific organization can help to have or to provide a basis for trust-based platforms. And I will give example on the issue of IPCC and climate change. Thank you. Next. This is a publication by Speakerman. So they looked at the way by which science have been used to support policy and practice. So what has been the usual thing, and also the critique for scientists now, that we have this one line of approach. We have problems, so scientists, they find the problem, do the research, produce the knowledge, then somehow think that it will get translated or transferred by policy, so policy adopted, and it gets diffused into community practice. But that's not what we have seen so far, and that's why we keep seeing that these losses in disasters. So they look at this red thing, this red box at the top and bottom, look at what have been the problems. For example, here, addressing multiple scales, we lack of multiple scale, we lack of collaboration, and the green stuff there, or in the box, says what needs to be done. So I think this is also an enlightening moment for scientists to see that what we have doing so far, so this is about doing business as usual, is no longer feasible, and we need to work closely, collaboratively with policymakers and also people or organizations working in practice. Next. So this is a global outlook on disaster science. Maybe it's too small, but you can see here, so death toll versus publication. So countries that suffer death the most from disasters tend to publish the least. And also economic loss versus publication, the figure is also the same. Country who lost the most from economic and also in terms of number of deaths publish the least. And then we can see from the map here, United States, India, and China publish the most, but where are the most vulnerable countries to disasters? It's in Africa, it's in Southeast Asia, the Pacific, where like these publications are really, or very few published. Next. So what has been the role or recognition on science and technology? I think Sendai, and one thing that makes it transformative is that it recognized the role of science and technology. So it calls for establishment of this Science and Technology Advisory Group. So I think it has occurred now, but again, we need to ask, what needs to be done more. And then secondly, it calls for academia, scientific, and research entities to strengthen these networks and collaboration for policymakers. So we know now that scientists have this obligation to implement Sendai through contributing of science-based or research-based activities. So what has been the progress? I think internationally they have STAC, Science and Technology Advisory Group. In Asia, they have ASTAC, or Asia Pacific Science Technology Advisory Group. And this is what I have for ASEAN, Ibu Alinda. I think it's developed by AHA Center, yeah? But I think that's only it. Despite all these networks, this platform, we still need to do more. We still suffer losses from death and economic loss. So, having to know all these facts, what can be done, or what are some of the innovations that we can do in terms of strengthening this collaboration? Yes. So I think WMO provide this a very good example on how science. So they have here science, infrastructure, and services as a coherent approach by which then information on climate, on weather, get translated, institutionalized through organization, and even goes to the community, for example, through early warning system. Next. And also another example that I think very good, so this international network on multi-hazards early warning systems, we can see that the whole UN or a lot of UN organizations are involved, but we know, for example, International Science Council, IRDR, Integrated Research on Disaster Risk are involved. So this is also, I think, some of the transformation that have only occurred in the last 5 years or so. Another way, innovative way that we can do, this is about science to create a platform that is trust-based, is on IPCC and IPBES. IPCC said that we need to limit warming by 2 degrees, and even more for small island countries by 1.5. This is not a number that comes out of nowhere. This is based on research. This is based on, so the science-based target is important, and it helped to depoliticize, like some of the global problems that we have now. Next. Another way I think we can do here at the ASEAN level, we can get this example from European Commission on Disaster Risk Management Knowledge Center. I think this collaboration, if you can see, the institutes collaborates there. They have science for policy, they have business for policy, they have public. So I think these examples or this integration between science, policy, and action and practices are taking place in different places. Another example, I think one-stop service for information prevention web in UNDRR. I think We Adapt has been really good in terms of providing a one-stop service for community of practice to know where, how they can connect on their activities. Then also, I think an open science, open data, and open map for DRR is important. This is also, I think, an international progress that we can also implement at the ASEAN level. Then big data, ICT, and space-based DRR, I think this has been implemented, but of course, it's good to see that making this open science, big data, and spaces DRR available for policymakers when they need it the most, and knowing what kind of information, space-based information that they can access to, I think it's important. Utilizing university network of DRRs, I think universities have been well advanced on their research, but to what extent policymakers know how to access them or even recognize them, and then making them as partner in risk reduction is also important. Youth networks on the RR, I think the youth issue, youth-based activity has been very strong within the UN now, and it's also the time to work with the youth. And I think You Inspire in Indonesia has been very strong in getting these activities on the RR. Yeah, so again, my three key message that we know countries who suffer the loss produce science the least. And then also we need science to be available, and there are already activities, initiative and networks that can be utilized. However, these networks are probably occur still in the international or regional level, and this is probably, I think, relevant for ASEAN and also the countries in the ASEAN. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jalante. As a researcher, I can relate with what you've been trying to advocate. And I think it's also a high time because the movement for open science is now getting stronger. And so there's the need for all scientists to work collaboratively. And the fact that you draw lessons from the European, I think also very imperative for ASEAN to be done. We can discuss that later on the Q&A. Now I'd like to invite Ibu Adelina Kamal for the 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. This is the last session of the today's symposium. So I'm not going to tell you about the story of AHA Center. I'm going to answer the questions given by the moderator. But since I only have like 10-15 minutes, I'll try to answer question number 1. That is about being global leader. What does it take for ASEAN to become a global leader in disaster management by 2025? And question number 3. What is our assessment about ASEAN-UN cooperation and how we can improve cooperation with other partners. So question number 1 first, and I'm going to share one picture. I hope that you can see that. I think some of you must recognize that picture. That was 5 years ago, 2nd of November 2015 to be precise. In Singapore, ASEAN held its first annual ASEAN Strategic Policy Dialogue on Disaster Management, hosted and organized by the Singapore Civil Defense Force. Thank you very much. Co-organized together with ASEAN Secretariat and AHA Center. This event was monumental, and I like to show that to you because it was attended by 3 Secretaries General of ASEAN. Sitting together as panelists, former SG, late Dr. Surin Pitsuwan, rest in peace, from Thailand. Former SG Ong Keng Yong from Singapore, and ASEAN SG at that time, Mr. Lee Long Min from Vietnam. Getting 3 SGs at one time, at one place, talking about just one topic that is on disaster management was a big deal. And they gave their thoughts on what should be our vision for the next 10 years. That was 2015 at that time. Each of them had a share of disasters during their respective period. Ong Keng Yong, 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Surin Pitsuwan, 2008 Cyclone Nargis, and Lee Long Min, 2013 Typhoon Haiyan. And all of these 3 were our so-called world-class disasters. The event was also monumental because it was the genesis and the birth of the ASEAN Vision 2025 on disaster management. And if I give you one line from that vision on 2025 on disaster management, it's about vision of ASEAN to become the global leader on disaster management by the year 2025. One thing to underline, however, the drive for ASEAN to become the global leader on disaster management is not about conquering the world. Well, it's not a bad idea. Not about standing taller than others. Not about demanding respect from others. The drive was about how ASEAN can contribute more to the world, sharing our experiences with the world, shaping global policies on disaster management, and bringing the discussion at the global arena to where the disasters are, our region. Now, we have approached about halfway towards 2025. We are now in 2020. At this time, 5 strategic policy dialogues in Singapore have been done The AHA Center Executive Program, thank you Japan for the support, is entering its 7 years, going beyond the target of 100 future global leaders by the year 2020. Up to 7 regional organizations have come to AHA Center to learn about us. In 2018, AHA Center was awarded as one of the recipients of the Asian of the Year Award by the Straits Times in Singapore. We have responded to 33 major disasters in the past 8 years in 7 ASEAN countries. We have trained 322 members of ASEAN ERAT from all the 10 ASEAN countries. We have established together with the member state 3 regional stockpiles in 3 locations. Indonesia is going to be the host of the global platform very soon. So now we have a half journey of becoming a global leader on disaster management. 5 more years to go. So what can be done for ASEAN to reach our 2025 agenda? Allow me to share 3 ingredients. First, when we say ASEAN to become a global leader by 2025 on disaster management, the first question to ask is who in ASEAN in that vision? Is it the member states, the government, the 10 NDMOs, the ASEAN Secretariat, or the AHA Center? Or all of us? Yes, we are by default. We are the so-called usual suspect. But it should not stop there. The list should also include the civil society, the private sector, the academic institution, and the think tanks in our region. And it's not only about the ASEAN socio-cultural community pillar, but also about the ASEAN political security and the ASEAN economic community pillar. After all, our own ASEAN people will not understand what is AEC, ASCC, and APSC, right? So ASEAN in that vision is about all of us in the region that share the same concern about disaster management. Therefore, to achieve that vision, we should first develop the ability to work together among ourselves first in the region. Instilling that spirit, making it as a collective vision among the relevant sectors and stakeholders of ASEAN, and then working on our respective comparative advantages, not in competition mode, to achieve that vision collectively. Second ingredient, in order for ASEAN to become a global leader, we must first be a leader in our own region. When a significant disaster strikes in ASEAN, the question is, where is ASEAN and what is ASEAN doing? We know that we have achieved success in building regional leadership if that question is being less and less and even disappear because ASEAN has already answered that question with action even before that question is being asked. One ASEAN One Response is about answering that question with speed of response, scale of resources, and solidarity of action, 3S. For the AHA Center, for example, I keep telling my colleagues, the question that we should continue to ask ourselves is that if there is a significant disaster in the region, will the AHA Center be the first to be called by the affected country and the assisting country in ASEAN? What value do we bring to stay relevant? Being the leader in the region is also about growing strong ASEAN think tanks that can provide credible policy reference for decision makers in ASEAN, like CSIS, like RSIS in Singapore. It's also about strong ASEAN-born NGOs that operate in different countries in ASEAN and beyond, like Muhammadiyah, like Mercy Malaysia. It's also about private sector networks that can organize those companies in ASEAN that have the goodwill in building resilience, like the PDRF in the Philippines. All of these are assets to strengthen ASEAN leadership on disaster management in our own backyard. So what can the usual suspect do, that is including AHA Center, to help them, is to work together with them to achieve that vision. Third, in order for ASEAN to be a global leader, it must have strong global partnership. Perhaps there may be a time in the future where a disaster is so big and so complex that even regional resources, no matter how good we are not enough, and we need global support. And that is also one ASEAN One response, by the way. It is called ASEAN 3.0. And that is about how we can ensure that partners and the international humanitarian community know how to plug in, what to plug in, and when to plug in into our regional mechanisms. It's about ASEAN centrality, but in the midst of global partnership. There's also so much global experience and global practices out there that we can gather. So we do not need to reinvent the wheel. Through our ongoing partnership with the EU, thank you very much, February, 10 million euro given to ASEAN, 7.2 direct grant to AHA Center, and 2.2 to Swedish and the Estonian to help us learn from them and also to facilitate region-to-region learning. That is also about global partnership. And EU is ahead of us because they have done it. They have responded outside their region. At the same time, we can also share our best practices to the world and other regional organizations apart from the EU, including the massive experience of ASEAN member states in managing and responding to disasters, ASEAN experience in developing the regional policy framework, our experience in setting up and operationalizing the AHA Center. ASEAN to become global leader on disaster management in 2025 is a big and bold vision. ASEAN responding as one, not only in the region, but also outside the region, is a crazy vision. But hey, as our first president of Indonesia, Sukarno, and he was a crazy man, by the way, once said, "Dream as high as the sky, because even if you fall, you will fall among the stars." So that is to answer question number 1. Question number 3. I was told that my time is up. So up to you, Mr. Moderator, whether you want me to, Okay, 2 more minutes. How ASEAN should strengthen our partnership with the UN and others. I'm going to tell you the story of the unthinkable partnership between ASEAN and UN OCHA. And I'm glad that Amy, my friend, is here. When we think about global partnership, we think about UN. So I'll share the story about the unthinkable partnership because you see, in the past, we never thought that we have gone this way. We have grown from competition to coordination. About 10 years ago, not long after Cyclone Nargis, I led the team of ERAT. I was the first team leader, by the way. I'm wearing high heels today, but I am also operational person. That was the first time when ERAT was deployed together with UNDAC. And then right after that, UN OCHA approached me. I was still at the ASEAN Secretariat, and AHA Center still did not exist. And we explored and to some degree negotiated some kind of MOU, learning from EU. And we discussed what principles to follow, what should be in charge, who should be in charge, and who should pay what. The discussion got stuck. The MOU was never formalized. Several years later, things changed. The AHA Center was established. The new head of OCHA regional office was appointed. The need to strike a partnership was re-emerged, but this time with a totally different approach. And we call it dynamic simplicity approach, invented by my predecessor, Said Faisal. Okay, I have not actually moved that slide, sorry for that. So this is another one. Dynamic simplicity focus on flexibility, practicality, and simplicity. AHA Center was still young. We just established ERAT. And when it comes to disaster, anything can happen on the ground. Disaster in one country will be different from another country, and that requires a different way to operate. So as a new and evolving organization, at that time we were not ready to enter into a partnership with the UN. We would never know what will happen next. And therefore, flexibility in partnership in the midst of unknown is required. Partnership in uncertain environment will require practicality in which we focus on things that work for both parties. In order to deliver results in uncertain environment, then simplicity is the key. So dynamic simplicity is about being flexible, practical, simple, and give enough room and time for the partnership to evolve and grow. And we didn't start with documents SOP partnership. We started with information sharing, knowledge exchange, training, and simulation exercise, and to some degree working together in disaster zone. And for every disasters that both of us responding, we conducted after action review. We saw whether it worked well, and then we improved. Okay? So to summarize, dynamic simplicity start with building trust first, and then working on the formal document later. But it required 3 ingredients for the dynamic simplicity to work. 1, personality involved. It is the one that make or break a partnership. Very difficult to sustain a partnership if you don't like the person. And especially if the person has the attitude to attack others, zero-sum game, winners takes all, or it is my way or the highway. Because in a war, in competition, there is always collateral damage. Second, it's a movie by the way, keep information, communication, and relationship constant. We had lots of coffee, informal meeting at offices, phone, Skype conversation, WhatsApp, and of course, less email. In informal setting, you can freely discuss the challenges that we face, understand the real concern of others. Of course, we also have, formal meeting with business attire and lots of documents to share. But formal meeting does not and will not replace informal communication. Third, respect the territory and find a common ground. ASEAN and UN have our own way of doing things. UN has its own mandate. ASEAN has our own mandate. UN with the UN General Assembly resolution, ASEAN with the ATMER, the Agreement on the Establishment of AHA Center, and the ASEAN Centrality. And these 3 things are non-negotiable for ASEAN. But it doesn't mean that we cannot work together. In the past, people always ask us, can you work together? Why? Because both of us have the same mandate, there is coordination. But now, there was no question anymore about that. Because people have seen AHA Center and UN OCHA working together both in disaster and non-disaster situation. And right now, by the way, we have come up with a draft interoperability document. And we have tested this interoperability in Central Sulawesi when ASEAN, ERAT, and UNDAC work together. And OCHA always present in our AHA Center Executive Program. We are now on the 7th year, never miss one chance. And they'll always join our ERAT training. I become your, champion. But I'm going to tell you a story because people have asked us, it's not easy, to work with someone that has similar function, coordination, and no one wants to be coordinated. But look at us, we make it. So partnership is a long-term game. Trust cannot be taken for granted because it's not something that people will give to us, it's something that we must earn. When people say that humanitarian space is shrinking, for me, it's actually humanitarian trust is shrinking. If we have trust and if we have relationship, both, it is so easy to go for partnership. And it is so much fun. I love going to a conference when I will see my friends. Oh, Ray, my friend. Dasuke, where is Dasuke? From ICRC. Chris, Buen. So, there is this thing, and we need to do that. We need to do that more. February, of course. So let me close, and again, this is the last panel. Let me quote by saying that if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together. How about if you want to walk fast and far? Perhaps you can walk with your trusted friend that share a common vision. And for me, that is the essence of bridging global and regional partnership. Thank you all. And sorry for passing the time.
Thank you, Bu Adelina. And thanks for that very passionate presentation. Now we know that we are in good hands. And you are actually forcing us to work harder than you and to work together with the AHA Center. And now, I would not summarize because I think you already have your own summary of her talk. Now, I'd like to invite Pak Febri for your 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, on behalf of the EU mission to ASEAN, I'd like to thank ASEAN Secretariat and the China government to invite us here. In badminton games, which Indonesia is really good at, we used to have all Indonesian final. Not very much these days, but you still see it once in a while. The last time I saw was in the SEA Games. Today is a rare opportunity to have all Indonesian panels in the final sessions. So this strikes a quite interesting figures. I feel personally very happy, but at the same time intimidated, given the big names that have spoken before me. This is true. Being the last but not least, as Philip put it, speaker gives even more insurmountable pressure, especially if you speak after Adelina, So, And again, especially since my presentation will not be as advanced as the other three previous speakers. Joke aside, disaster management push boundaries and instigate structural policy reforms. And to push for policy reforms, the main ingredient is to build strong and broad-based coalitions who works together collaboratively. As shown in this picture. Can you go next? Next. Oh, back. All right, minus UK. Sorry for the old pictures. You see this? 27 countries plus 10 ASEAN member states. A colleague from the UN University has pointed out how the EU works together. The EU and ASEAN share a common DNA. And Adelina says that ASEAN wants to learn from the EU. I think we learn both ways. There's so much thing that we can learn from each other. And in some cases, even ASEAN are more advanced than the EU, I have to admit it. Take, for instance, on your joint pool assets. You are the first one who roll out those ideas. The EU follows. That's one element whereby a reciprocal learning process within both worlds, I'm saying both worlds or both regions, are taking place in a very collaborative spirit. Adelina pointed out about partnerships a lot. I'm a political scientist, so we like to mumbling a bit about partnerships. What are the key principles of partnerships? Adelina mentioned trust and so on and so on. I agree with her, but I'd like to put some more, if I may. First, I think it has to be mutually beneficial for each party. The second has to be rational and objective. You cannot enter a partnership by you being irrational. The third, transparent and accountable. The fourth is respect to each other. The fifth, enabling you, not dragging you down, but it has to enable you. And the last one is equal. Equal partnership is the key, because without equal partnership, then it will be a subjugation. So, other key terms from any partnerships is important, such as one have to keep a safe distance. One have to keep a safe distance. And don't get sucked into each personalities, because institution, organization, they have their own organization cultures. You have your culture, we have our culture. We find a middle ground whereby we can collaborate, but we should not get sucked into each other. This is very clear in the terms of healthy partnerships. Now, partnerships, there is a playbook for partnerships. But first, you need to know what you want. And I'm very sure, as Adelina tell us today, ASEAN really knows what they want. And we have to respect that. They know what you want. and it's our job to help them, to work together. And it's also their job to help us. Yeah? It's a two-way process. There is a symmetric and asymmetric relationship between your partners. Take, for instance, ASEAN Secretariat with the countries, yeah, as regional entities with individual countries, development partners. Take, for instance, Japan, US, Australia, New Zealand, yeah, and others. And there is a symmetric partnership like us, regional to regionals. Yeah? And then also, we have another asymmetric relationships between ASEAN and the international organizations, yeah, which is UN, World Bank, ADB, and so on. In any asymmetric relationship, one needs to find a way to balance the way. Yeah? Balance is the key terms in here. Which one is heavier? Heavier can be good in terms of structure, architecture, mechanics, procedures, but can also mean less flexible and lack of adaptability. So you really need to choose your partner carefully, yeah, if you want to achieve something. The most important thing is to know what ASEAN wants. And again, ASEAN knows what it wants, yeah. But wants can be manifested into real, actionable, and structural approach, or it can be turned into a symbolic approach. So you have to be really careful in here. Find a balance between symbolic approach and a structural approach. Both is important, as in symbolic action, one must project itself to be recognized, to be well represented, but it should not forget the fundamental, actionable, and structural approach as another foundational elements. Second, how ASEAN can benefit from different value of it by the symmetric and asymmetric relationships. This taken us to the next phrase, yeah? Know yourself, but more importantly, know your partners well before you enter into a partnerships. Yeah? Then find a middle ground, both at operational and strategic level. Apparently, me and Adelina think alike. So, what is the comparative advantage and the competitive advantage of your partners? You need to understand that before you enter into partnership. And where are you going with this partnership? To your directions or to theirs? And by the way, to your and to their direction, it does not always mean good or bad things. Yeah? Partners are unique. Some partner has a skill specifics in terms of operation, technicalities. Some partner have a model to offer. Like us, we have a model to offer to ASEAN. Yeah? And some partner has principle and idealisms, which is very good. Yeah? Adelina is smiling again. All agreed that ATMER has been very successful in bridging partnership. No one can dispute that. This is very real. With its working program that has ended last year, and the new one is now operational. Yeah. So there is no way, yeah, to understand what ASEAN have to achieve on this ongoing work plan by asking the opinion of your partners. Yeah. We can be objective as much as we can be biased, yeah, because we are your partners. That's the spirit of the partnership. When we become your partner, we can be objective, but bear in mind, we can also be very biased. Yeah? So, but having an independent review, and I keep saying this in every ASEAN's ATMER meeting, there is a need to have an independent review to the ATMER, what you have achieved so far. Conduct a stock-taking exercise. Yeah? What you have successfully achieved. There are many things. Yeah? This is very important because it's not only giving ASEAN the credibility, but also will give a candid and honest answers, which is detrimental in deciding the next steps. What have you done better, and what should have been done better, and what we should have done more. This will also be instrumental in determining, yeah, the type of partnerships that you are longing for. So before that, I think having an independent review is very important towards the ATMER. Again, I'd like to emphasize the EU and ASEAN share the same DNA as the regional DN entities. Yeah, I'm very happy that our colleagues from the UN University pointed out. Thank you very much. I learn new things today. So, the more reason that we should cooperate together. ASEAN has AHA Center, and the EU has the Emergency Response Coordinating Center that coordinates all the 27 member states in disaster response. Yeah? ASEAN has ERAD, the EU has modules, exactly the same thing. Yeah? Couple of weeks from now, AHA Center will visit Brussels and visiting our Emergency Response Coordinating Centers to build again a partnership. Yeah? Common operations, common certification, common standardization. This is crucial. Yeah. So, in terms of structural thinking, the EU and ASEAN are naturally not very far from each other. So we have many things that we can work and develop together. I'd like to close my short intervention that no country should overlook the importance of concerted and coordinated response. Such regional approach projected by ASEAN in dealing with disaster has given us better hope to deal with such unprecedented calamities jointly pool AMS or ASEAN member state expertise such as ERA team and asset managed by our center. This presents us not only with a workable model, but also a mechanism to deal with transboundary natures of the climate change or climate-induced disaster, which require strong collaboration and partnership among member states. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Febri. And I think it's rather rare when we discuss about disaster management with so many positive attitudes and positive statements from the speakers who are very experienced in the area. So I think it's a kind of a very good, hopefully, end for this symposium. We still have another session after this short session about how we move forward, drawing lesson from our 2 days symposium. And thank you, Pak Febri, for highlighting principles of partnership and collaborations. And you pointed out that two entities or more needs to understand each other and keeping the safe distance. And first of all, like what Ibu Adelina said, I think we need to get our act together before we enter a partnership with other regional entities. And I think that's what ASEAN has been doing. Now I open the floor. We still have about 20 minutes for Q&A. If there is questions, comments from the floor, now the session is open. I see two hands up, a gentleman in the front and a gentleman at the back. Please identify yourself.
Thank you. I am Khan Emu from Myanmar Army, presenting the ASEAN Defense Senior Official. And as an ASEAN member state, we, Myanmar nation, is the coordinating and collaborating with the other ASEAN countries and plus countries through the ASEAN Defense Ministerial meeting and ADSOM and military medicine, EWG and HADR EWG. And not only Ministry of Defense, but also the other ministries are cooperating with the other ASEAN member states. And we are performing joint exercise with other ASEAN countries in the field of military medicine and HADR in the previous years. And we hope the global and regional partnership is important, and I agree with you. And we should further perform the regional and global partnership in the area of, as discussed in the last day, in implementation of the green approach or other environmental preservation. And I think ASEAN countries are in the center of Asia-Pacific region as well as Indo-Pacific region, and its important role in the ASEAN countries and cooperating with the other global countries. Thank you.
Thank you for the intervention. The gentleman at the back.
My name is Manrahid, Ministry of uh, First of all, I would like to thanks to all the panelists, distinguished panelists. Yes, but very mentioned just all the panelists, including moderator from Indonesia. It reminded me, I watched badminton, All England badminton, Tono versus King. So anyway, I have a question to Ibu Adilina Kamal, Executive Director of AHA. As you are well aware, the global political landscape has changed drastically, and also AHA Center role also has changed, a little bit has changed, and no longer for the natural disaster. And as you are aware, recently the ASEAN leaders has given a mandate to AHA to oversee the humanitarian assistance and also refugee-related matters in Myanmar. So what you would like to see, or would like you to lead AHA 5 years from now, as you mentioned just now, as crazy as you would like to see. So what AHA that you want to see 5 years from now? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Any more questions and comments? If not, I'd like to invite Ibu Adelina to respond. Oh, there's another one. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Sasi. I'm representing the ASEAN USAID Prospect Project. I used to work for ASEAN Secretariat before, and I know Lina as well. I just would like to ask the panel members to be, can you elaborate more with concrete examples of the global or regional partnership, especially in ASEAN, that has already happened in the area of disaster management. It's not just the principles, but also the examples, because we know that there are a lot of disasters. There were a lot of disasters already taking place in this region. So if it can be concretized, and we also know that there are many partners also attending the symposium. So if you can elaborate a little bit on this aspect, thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Sasi. Anyone? No more? Okay. Maybe oh, there's another one. I'm sorry. The one in the front, gentleman in the front.
Thank you, Hasanda, for the regional cooperation as a focal point for the ASEAN member states. And with regard to the Myanmar situation, because you mentioned about the after the Cyclone Nagis, Hasanda appeared, and before Cyclone Nagis, the Hasanda has not been established, as you mentioned, no? So I'd like to request the Hasanda in the area of the capacity building of our communities and the staff, as in the simulation exercise, the tabletop exercise, and the early warning system preparation for the disasters. So up to now, we haven't seen this type of the pre-disaster, the preparedness and plan management carried by the Heart Center. So as well as the EU Commission, we like to request to draw a plan and implement the disaster management in the area of capacity building. This is my the request.
Thank you. Ibu Adelina? And there is one question for everybody about the more concrete examples of collaboration that you know of that can be a lesson for all of us?
Thank you very much for the questions. I think on the civil-military coordination is certainly, the comment on civil-military coordination is certainly something that we would like to see more. We look forward to the operationalization of ASEAN Military Ready Group, SOP, that we expect to be endorsed by the defense ministers this year. And we understand that there will be a role of AHA Center there, because then with the military asset and capacities, that will further enhance the ASEAN standby arrangement. And as part of the ERAT Level 2, this is the ASEAN Emergency Response and Assessment Team. Apart from the 12 induction courses that have been done, we have also conducted Level 2 training, and one of them is on civil-military coordination. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do to further enhance civil-military coordination. But even before that, we have already practiced it, because for the regional stockpile in Subang, Malaysia, we always request military support through NATMA, Malaysia, for the Royal Malaysia Aircraft A400M to carry our regional stockpile relief items to the affected countries. And the same thing is being applied for other satellite warehouses currently in the Philippines and Thailand. The green approach, perhaps February is much more green approach and green infrastructure. I mentioned about it yesterday, and that was based on the discussion that Philippines colleagues and Indonesia colleagues had when our chair visited Pak Doni. And both actually agreed that right now, green infrastructure, a green approach is better than gray and brown approach. It's just that it is less popular. But to tell you the truth, when Indonesia and Philippines, the 7-Eleven and the supermarket disasters get together, and they prove that these things work, it will work, man, right? It will work. Okay. And Pak Doni mentioned that he's planning to mobilize the youth for this green infrastructure, and then getting the volunteers. And the Philippines, as I know, they have actually a law requiring the students, both high school students and university students, to plant trees before graduation. It's a law. So these are the things that I think we need to tell more, and then also to share more. And these are stories from this region. Remember, it's not only AHA Center and the ADMOs are telling these stories, it's all about us, how we capture these good practices and then also share with each other. Mandate, what AHA Center want to see 5 years from now. I'm being very careful here because members of AHA Center Governing Board are here, and we did a rethinking week, and Bapak, you were there, and we asked the question. One of the things, I think, if you ask me, we need to do what has been tasked to us first. We cannot do other things, well, if we are not doing what have been tasked to us very well, right? And that is on natural disaster. And for now, we haven't covered all types of natural disaster. Drought is something that we need, drought monitoring, and also response for drought, the slow onset disaster, not yet. So that is something that we need to do more on that one. And then second, deeper our response models. We have 3 regional stockpiles, but these are highly funded by, funded by our donors. We need to increase the diversity of our relief stockpile, so that we have also the involvement of our public as well as the private sector partnership. So deepen our current role in preparedness and response, in risk assessment, in recovery and rehabilitation, in knowledge management, getting member states and helping member states to become the global leader on disaster management. And that is actually already a lot, Pak. And then if we also ask to do other things, I think that will be on a call on a case-by-case basis, only when resources are there, and when we have the expertise. And I prefer, as the head of organization, I prefer that the capacity of AHA Center in responding to other types of disaster, if we have to, is strengthen first. We learn first. before we go, rather than we go and then we learn. We learn first before we go, and therefore, we're very fortunate that some of our partners are currently helping us in that regard. Some examples of concrete regional global partnership. AHA Center is a very good example of regional partnership, Sasi. It's a successful example of regional partnership. Just imagine 10 countries, different ways of doing things, governance structure different and all that. They all agree through one agreement, disaster management agreement, and agreement on the establishment of AHA Center, one SOP, SASOP, one ASEAN Joint Disaster Response Plan, one AHA Center, and that is amazing. And then we are now already responding as one. So that is a good example of regional partnership. Many other example of partnership. We have partnership with the military right now. Chapter 6 already included into SASOP. Chapter 7 medical, that's a partnership. Global ASEAN EU, of course. ASEAN UN Joint Strategic Plan, not only with the OCHA, but with 14 other or more, Ibu Victoria, UN agencies. ASEAN cooperation with the IFRC and ICRC, there is a joint action plan, there's an MOU between ASEAN and the Red Cross, and AHA Center is doing that at the operational level. I don't know where else. I think with the civil society, we need to do a little bit more. We want to do more with the PDRF, with the, with the private sector, with the private sector engagement. The Red Cross I have mentioned, yeah. And then with various dialogue partners. I think most of the dialogue partners we have partnership with, including the United States, since the beginning of our establishment of AHA Center, with the PDC, who has been powering AHA Center. That is also partnership, and we will not be here without your support. So there's so many examples out there. We signed MOI with quite a number of agencies. That I would say also about partnership. So I think this is something that we need to dig deeper. And one thing that perhaps we need to do more if we want to become global leader is to establish also partnership with other regional organizations apart from the EU. But ASEAN and EU, if we do that together, I think we should also do that with other regional organizations in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we start with from here. Maybe Pak Faisal and then Ibu Rianti and then Pak Febri.
So as I show you in the picture in the slide, so one last slide about this integrated community shelters. I show you how is it from the regional, from one country. It's all donated and the funding is coming from Korea, which is collecting from the private sector like Samsung and then Koika, and then a big, I forget the name, the big NGO, and then they contact APAT Korea. They said, we have this donation for the support of post disasters in Palu. They contact APAT Indonesia, and APAT Indonesia search who is the local place or local who need these shelters. So we contact ACT, who have a network in everywhere. So then we find the location for the shelters, but then we have to work with the sub-district who owns the land, because you cannot put. So this is showing that even at regional, national, and subnational, district and sub-district, you have to have all this coordination, partnership, and collaboration and assignment of what their role. It was really successful. This is one example. Second example, if you see the second about the coordination civic force, you see the airplane with civic force, helicopters, ferry for the transportation, land transportations and sea transportation. It's not belong to the civic force. So in preparation, they make already a MOU with all this cooperation, transportation. So when things happen, they can use it directly. So that's how it works, and it works efficiently. In Sri Lanka, for example, why it's successful, they have this flood, drought, and so they work together, MOU with Cargill, this like Indomat. So whenever happens, so the people who suffer, who need the basic needs, they just can go to this small thing and collect that, and they just bring the coupon, and it will bill later on to the funding and so on. So there are many ways in terms of how we coordinate, but it showed that collaboration, trust among all these cooperation, civil society, and like I said, is important. And you mentioned also, yeah, this is one of the important, transparency and trust for the, so you really have to see who is your partner. Are they really able for a good partnership? So not just any partner. This is one of the many examples that I've experienced. One more important is why the mobile or the emergency hospital in Cox's Bazar, I saw it in my own face, compared to other who is more advanced, because they know the very important is that they apply all the doctors and, like I said before, who speak the language of the Rohingya. So I thought they are Bengali, so they speak Bengali. No, they have different language. So that's also important, like I say. So adapt to the local situation, speak the language that they see. So again, this is just a direct example what we have experienced, and this is gain us also our skill and knowledge about how we deal with our partners' collaboration in disaster management.
So to respond the types of collaboration that is necessary, I think, again, I will go back from research and capacity building collaboration. I think universities network for DRR has been quite strong, but the way they then interact to existing organizations, implementing organizations, that what needs to be done in the future more. And also, I think regional assessment is necessary as we increasingly, and we know that the impacts of climate change will increase in the future. Slow onset events and the impacts will happen more. To give you examples, the need for this regional collaboration and capacity building. Mekong Delta, they experience flood and drought. It is expected to intensify in the future. And if flood and drought are to intensify in the future, food security of the whole Asian region may be affected. So that's something that again calls for collaboration. Forest fires. We know experiences forest fires that occurred in Indonesia. Then the haze went to all over the countries. So that's why this ASEAN haze agreement was adopted. And I think that's a very good example, an indicator for how transboundary collaboration is necessary. Then biodiversity loss. We know that ASEAN is, hosts the coral triangle where biodiversity level of the coral reef and the coral ecosystem are the highest. So this is also calls for collaboration. Coral bleaching and sea level rise. When sea level rise occurs in the future, then the coastal communities in the ASEANs, in the archipelagos countries will be affected. And that's why I think now collaboration for DRR may happen and have been progressing well in terms of responding to rapid onset disasters. But I think the future, this slow onset, long-term climate impacts will take more place. And of course, to respond to this increasing demand in terms of dealing not only with disaster but humanitarian displacement and refugees. We know now that the study from IMO, they said people displaced in the past, displacement and refugees were caused by conflict, but we know now the indication in the last 5 years that disasters and conflict collides with climate, and then that's where and disaster and climate change will intensify number of people affected in the future. And that's why I think again this collaboration and capacity building through research and also these activities through coordinated by AHA Center and ASEAN, I think will then need to be expanded in the future. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very good question, yeah, about how to put it concretely. Actually, in my presentation, I put few slides, but due to time constraints, I decided not to present it. But maybe I just can give you a few examples. One of the most concrete recently partnerships, yeah, that we have with ASEANs is our new EU support to AHA centers program. It's a 10 million euro program, for 5 years. It's very concrete, recently started. What makes it good is that 7.2 million goes directly to our center. So it's not the EU is delivering the task for them. We give the money to our center so our center can exercise their muscles. I mean, this is a very basic fundamental element. How can you expect your partner to get stronger if they don't exercise their muscles? Yeah. So we give the fund, so let our center exercise its powers. Yeah. But at the same time, we have 2.2 million euro given to the Swedish Civil Protection Agency plus Estonian Rescue Board, who will act as a personal trainer. It's only 2.2 million. Yeah. So we ask our member state, okay, we give 7.2 million, but small money, we pay you as a personal trainer. That is the type of partnerships that we're talking about. Yeah. Second, we also have recently 24 million program in sustainable peatland and haze mitigation. Big program, recently launched as well, targeting forest fires. Yeah. The money goes to the regional approach in terms of materializing the haze agreements, yeah, including the support to the establishment of soon ASEAN Coordinating Center for Transboundary Haze. Adelina was the one who drafted the transboundary haze in her previous life, I think. Yeah. So 24 million, 6 million out of 24 million goes to Indonesia directly to the state budget. Directly to the state budget. So that is the type of the partnerships that we are building. And the last example is 10 million project for ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. Someone talking about green infrastructures. I think this is a paradigm shift, as Thomas Kuhn says. Yeah? So we give 10 million euro directly to the ASEAN Center of Biodiversity based in Los Baños, Philippines, to support them in their undertaking to preserving our nature capital, which is very imperative if you want to stay safe in the world that is constantly changing because of the climate change. So that is the 3 concrete examples that I can point it out. Adelina asked me to point it out something as well on green infrastructure. I think this is a very important narrative, yeah? But sometimes we are trapped with the concept or with the term of the infrastructures. When we think about infrastructure, it's something hard, it's something concrete. It is not. So again, we need a paradigm shift, as Thomas Kuhn said, yeah? In the way we see the word of infrastructures. Yeah? We need to harness the beauty of the ecoservism or deep ecologies like Fritjof Capra, for instance, Arnaiz or Deleuze, Guattari, all deep ecology philosophers, for instance. So nature-based solution is very important. And the EU has a strategy for that. We call it EU Strategy for Green Infrastructures. Yeah? And this is not new at all. Yeah? On top of our new Green Deal, yeah, we have the EU Strategy for Green Infrastructures, yeah, whereby ecosystem services and green infrastructure are streamlined, yeah, to ensure benefit that flows from the nature to the people and also protects people. So I think we need to move away from the Cartesian point of view that you need to tame the nature. What you need is to put it on the, what you call as a gestalt ontology, that you are part of the natures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Febri, I think with that deep philosophical statement in the end, I think it served the purpose of Symposium, that it's the time for us to reflect and to think about what we've been doing so far and what we need to be doing in the future in terms of the betterment of disaster management, at least in the context of ASEAN. Now, please join me in thanking all the panelists for their insightful presentation. I return the microphone to the MC.
Thank you to our moderator and panelists for this last very insightful session. Please give a big round of applause once again. We have also an announcement because there are many requests for the presentations from the panelists and also the notes from the symposium. We would like to announce that you can drop your email or contact to the desk behind the room if you want the slides and also the notes from this symposium. Before we start our next session, I have a good news. We would like to invite all the distinguished guests to have a coffee break, and we will start again approximately at 3:45. Thank you, and please enjoy your coffee break.